So I finally got around to bringing our Windows 98 computer system up from the basement. And this is the monitor that was originally used with it. And here is the computer itself. It is a compact Presario, I believe it's pronounced. And it's got a little sticker on it that says Intel inside, Pentium 2. And obviously compared to today's computers, it's not terribly powerful. But back in the day, I'm fairly certain that this was pretty state-of-the-art then. It has a CD drive in the front, and it does have a floppy disk drive as well, because I imagine that floppy disks were more popular than CDs when Windows 98 came out. But when I was using this when I was much younger, I was using mostly CDs actually. The only experience I really had with floppy disks is with our electronic piano, but that's another story. So, otherwise the front is pretty basic. It's got a little model number sticker here with the serial number. And I'll just get the monitor out of the way. So this is what the back looks like. So it has all the standard connectors that a computer would have had back then. Obviously here we have our power source, and this is a power switch that can be used to turn the computer on or off. You can also use this button here, I think it's the moon button, to turn the computer on, or maybe that's waking it from sleep or something, but I guess you could call this the primary power switch. And actually, before I brought it up from the basement, I took out a bunch of dust. This fan in the back here was just clogged with dust. Probably mostly from use, not from accumulation in the basement. As far as I know, this hasn't been cleaned out. But over here, I believe this is a serial port. And we have a parallel port here for printing, if these have helpful icons. This one I'm not quite sure about. Here are 2 USB ports. And then, back then, PS2 connectors were fairly common. So, PS2 connector for the keyboard, PS2 connector for the mouse. And stuff wasn't plug and play back then. So, if you plugged a keyboard, and you would have to actually reboot the computer for the keyboard to work. And I had some experiences like that. And then here you have your other standard stuff. Microphone, speaker, not quite sure what these are for. It looks like volume up and volume down. Something like that. And then this computer has an internal modem, so I'm not sure if it's 2 phone jacks. This is phone, and this is line. So it looks like you can plug 2 phone lines in to this computer. I know sometimes you plug a line in for the computer, and then you plug the phone into... Actually, I think that's what this is actually. I think the line comes in here and the phone comes in here. That's what it means by phone and line. So the line plugs in here, and then if you wanted to plug in a phone without using a splitter, you could plug the phone in here. That's how this is supposed to work. So it only has 1 modem then. I thought it would be odd for it to have 2 phone jacks. So that's the computer system in a nutshell. And these speakers here that I actually have on my desk, that's the left speaker, and the right speaker is back there. Those are actually plugged in to the stereo right here. And I use the stereo, or use the speakers connected to the stereo mainly because with the stereo outputting sound, it's actually very high quality, but the sound all comes out over here. And with speakers, external speakers over here, the sound comes out closer to my desk here. So it's just a little bit more convenient. But that's the computer system. And then this was the box that I think we put the stuff in when we took it down to the basement. So this is the keyboard that was used with the computer. And it is a compact keyboard. And it's just a regular full-size keyboard. Pretty standard. You can tell it was from back then by looking. You can usually tell how old the keyboard is by looking at the Windows key. Looking at the Windows key is usually a good indicator of how old the keyboard is. You can see that that was a Windows 95, 98-ish looking logo there. And this is the mouse that it was used with. Cords are all tangled, it looks like. So it looks like this is the computer's power supply. And then the mouse actually had a USB, it was a USB mouse, but a converter was required for the mouse to plug in. And oh, here it is. Oh, maybe that's actually another mouse. I'm not sure if the converter's in the box. But this mouse, you couldn't actually plug this mouse into one of the computer's USB ports. It had to be plugged into the mouse PS2 port. So there was a little converter that looked something like this, where you'd plug a USB mouse in here, and then it would be PS2 you could plug into the computer. And then this is another PS2 mouse. And I'm not actually, this was not used with this computer. It was a Dell by Microsoft mouse. Interesting. And then monitor, power supply. The monitor is a Sony monitor, by the way. But the computer and the keyboard are both compact. And then this is a little cover for the monitor. So the monitor is a pretty standard monitor. In the back you just have your power supply input there, and then a VGA port right there. And then that cover snaps on something like this, just to hide the cables. Oh, this is a refurbished monitor. I didn't know that. So this, it looks like this is from March 2001. So I'm not sure if this was actually the original monitor used with this keyboard, or this computer, sorry. But this was the monitor last being used, or this was the monitor being used when this computer was last being used. And then for a while this computer, or this monitor, was being used with a couple other computers before this monitor was retired. Towards the end of its use, I should say, it had some really bad problems with flickering and color display. It could only be used usefully for about 5 to 10 minutes before it would become unusable, and then you'd have to turn it off. So it's been sitting in the basement for 5 years along with this computer here. So maybe time has improved it, maybe time has not improved it, but we'll see when we turn it on. So yeah, and this would just fit right over like that, just to hide all that stuff, so you don't just see the cable sticking out in the back. So I have gone ahead and taken everything out of the box now and untangled it. And this wasn't actually in the box when I brought it up, I don't think. This is just, it says Unix shell programming. I took a quick look through it, and it's basically just a Unix programming book. Published in some point in the 90s, I think. So Unix was developed by Bell Labs, and you can see that mentioned here. Developed Unix at Bell Laboratories. Many of our great inventions were invented by Bell Labs. The laser, the transistor, Unix, C was invented by Bell Labs. And I must have passed it at some point, the copyright. Oh, here it is. 1990, so this book is now 28 years old, but I'm sure it's probably still good for learning some of the basics for Unix. Personally, I'm a Windows guy, so I have no idea about how anything in Unix works, really, but I thought this was a good book that could still be used today, so I just brought it up to keep. But that's actually not related to the computer at all. And then, again, this was the mouse that was being used with that computer when it was being used. And this mouse actually, towards the end of its use, the left click on it stopped working. Now it clicks and everything, but obviously on the computer it never registered. So I had to do everything on the computer using just the keyboard and the right click. And I believe the middle click and scroll worked as well, but I could not use the left click. And on a keyboard, there's actually a right click button, basically. This key here basically simulates a right click in most instances, but there's no such equivalent key for the left click. So it was quite the challenge. Fortunately, older operating systems were either not dependent on mice at all, like they were just keyboard based, or they were much less dependent than computers today are. And it was still usable, but it was definitely a little bit more difficult. And this mouse here, I think this was used with our Windows XP tower at some point, but this is actually a PS2 mouse, so I'm going to try to fire this computer up today, and I might plug this one in and see if that works, because somehow I've lost the PS2 connector, which is quite a shame. I didn't find it in the box, and I just looked through my box of cables, and I didn't find it there either. So I don't think we would be able to use this, because I did try plugging this directly into the USB port, but that doesn't work. I tried plugging several USB flash drives in, and those aren't recognized. So the USB ports on here are not compatible with many of today's USB technology, like mice or flash drives. This is probably like USB 1.0 or something like that. And then this was the VGA cable that was used to connect the monitor to the computer. The same cable. It was not in the box, but I had that in my box of cables. And this is the same one. It's rather thick compared to most VGA cables you would buy today. But it was connected to this computer, so I'm going to use the same VGA cable. So I've gone ahead and plugged the power supplies for the monitor and the computer into my power strip there. The only thing other than that that's on that power strip is my PBX, which is right there actually at the moment. So I'll just use that to power the computer and the monitor. And this is for the computer. And then this is the power into the computer. Usually monitors today don't have power inputs like that, but this one, that's how this is set up. So, actually another thing I forgot to show, it says here DC in and then audio in. So it looks like you can, there is somewhere on here, right here is a jack for a headphone. This green jack right here. So I guess you could have a line into your computer, and the computer has speakers. Obviously, that's why it's there. And then you could plug headphones into the monitor. So I feel like a lot of people don't give credit to just how cutting edge technology was back in the 90s. But I mean, compared to today's technology, which is kind of, just the next big release, Sometimes today it even feels like we're going backwards, but back in the 90s, we had a lot of great technology, at least in the computer industry, coming out. So, I mean, even today, some monitors don't have things like that, so that's pretty cool. So, the DC in would just go here, and actually, I believe, technically, the cords are supposed to go through here. I'm not quite sure. Maybe not. I thought that was used to hold the cords, but I'll just plug the power supply in here. There we go. So that's plugged in. The power strip is not turned on yet, but I'm just plugging everything in. And then the VGA cable goes in here. So there are just some cobwebs here in the monitor. This was just sitting down in the basement again, and our basement is unfinished, so this was exposed to the elements, spiders. We've had dead mice in the basement. Not in that part of the basement, but, you know, dead mice, or spiders. There's a lot of spiders by the computers. Ladybugs, dead ladybugs, cobwebs, things like that. So hopefully the computer still turns on. Again, it's been 5 years. And now that is screwed in just like that. And then this little cover here, I think just clips, oops. And I guess it's not properly screwed in. I think that's what these are for, to screw into the monitor, perhaps. So I went ahead and screwed that in. It was a little hard to do with one hand, so I did that off camera. But I just pushed that in there securely, and then I screw these in. Yeah, I usually don't do that on monitors today, but these are supposed to keep the connection secure, so now that video cable will not move. And then the other end of that cable gets plugged into the computer, and I don't know if I pointed out earlier, this is the VGA port here, obviously. And thought that was the right direction. Question, is this the VGA port? No, it is not. This is the VGA port. It says monitor right there. So, my bad, I had them mixed up earlier. This is the VGA port. This is the serial port. I keep getting those mixed up, but you can tell because this has 2 rows of pins, and this has 3 rows of pins, which you can see by looking at the cable itself. So this serial port here would probably have been used for a modem, although again, this computer has an internal modem, as evidenced by those phone jacks right there. And yeah, this plugs right in here. And then it'll need to be screwed in, just so it doesn't come out. It's a little loose, but I think that should probably be good. And then now I can clip this on. Maybe. It's not really necessary to use this, actually. Actually, I might have been right. You can see there's a small indentation here for the cables to come in, so that way you can put the back cover on. And I'll just go like that for now. Well, actually, I'm not sure if this opens. I think this should have... what I should have done is... Actually, I might as well do it now. If I unplug that, I think I can fit it through there. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe that's not how it works. I think there's a little clip here that makes that open up. Yup. So actually it wasn't necessary to do that. Now I have to plug it back in again. go. And then I'll just shut that up. And now it's in a good position to put the cover on. I think it goes on like this. Something like that. And there it is. I heard it snap in. You gotta kind of push it in. At least that end snapped in, this end did not. Actually, this might be broken now that I look at it. You can see it's got the little connector thing there, and over here, it looks like something is broken off here. I'm fairly certain. It looks like something is broken off. And so that's why it's not snapping in. So, but that's not actually necessary to use the monitor. It's fine just like that, but thought I would add it in if I could. So, power supplies are now taken care of, and I guess the next step would be the keyboard. And keyboard goes in here. You can actually see it's orange, color-coded to match the orange PS2 port on the computer. I mean, how convenient is that? They actually color-coded the ports back in the day. I doubt you can look at a computer, a modern computer, and find color-coded ports like that. Well, I shouldn't say that. Audio ports, like line in and line out, those are still color-coded, but you know, obviously the other connectors are not really. And I forgot the computer power supply, actually. That goes in here. And it won't turn on or anything, because I have not turned the switch on yet. And then we can plug in this mouse right here. And I've never used this mouse with this computer before, so who knows whether it will even work. I don't even know if this mouse works. Maybe that was why I was in the basement. But obviously I can't use the other mouse, so I may just have to go ahead and use this one and hope it works. So that is plugged in, and we are almost set for turning this computer on now. So I've now turned everything so it's facing the proper way and oriented so that you can actually use it. And oh, I also unplugged the speakers, the computer speakers, from the stereo, so that way I can plug that into the computer as well. So that would plug in here. Look, red for audio, I guess. This is also, the plug is also color-coded. So I'm not sure how beneficial sound will be here, but I can get that in. Somehow it is not. I'm not sure if it doesn't go anymore. I think that's as far in as it goes, actually. So at this point, we are now ready to turn this computer on. So I have no idea what will happen. Hopefully it'll boot up, but this computer hasn't been booted up in, I would say, probably 5 or 6 years now, and I mean, it was working perfectly the last time I was using it. There's nothing wrong with the computer itself. It was in perfect condition. So it's probably outlived some of the computers that were manufactured afterwards. It was like I said, it was a pretty solidly built computer. And we'll probably want to turn this around now. So I'll just do that, and then we'll turn it on. So I've gone ahead now and turned this computer around so that the front is facing us. Really all that's in the front here is a few buttons, volume up, volume down. That is an indicator light, I believe, for hard disk drive activity. And that looks like a picture of the world, a very crude one. It's rather hard to tell, but I believe that is, so I'm not quite sure what that is. It's probably just a function button. And then this is the main computer power button there. This is for the floppy disk drive. This opens the DVD drive. That's obviously powered, so it won't turn on right now. This needs to be powered on for that to actually work. But again, this is a compact Presario 4660, and we are now going to attempt to boot it up for the first time in 5 or 6 years now. So I will turn the power supply on. And turn the monitor on. Well, we got that. And we are booting up Windows 98. This computer is up and running. So the keyboard has power, there's an indicator light on that. And this isn't one of those mice that use lasers. Looks like it's a ballpoint mouse or something like that. And here we are. I remember sitting at this screen a long time ago and looking at that. So I never actually had an account officially on this computer. It says type a username and password to log on to Windows, and I never actually had an account, so I have no idea how much access I had at the time, but I would just log on to this computer by pressing the escape key. Back then you didn't need an account to use a computer. I'm not sure if that's just the guest account or how that works, but I'll go ahead and press escape now. And that is logging me in now. That was a nice sound. There's the taskbar at the bottom, Windows 98 style. Of course, this computer, even when we were using it, it never kept time, so it always boot up to midnight. And then here's the desktop. So I think pretty standard stuff that you would expect to see. Oh, now it reloaded. I didn't touch anything, so. But there's actually a ton of useful stuff on here. I think my mom wrote some kind of math program that you could use to test your addition, subtraction, multiplication, division skills. Maybe that's what shortcut to time test is. There's tic-tac-toe on here. I mean, there's lots of good stuff. Quick Basic, Microsoft Office, obviously. It had the latest and greatest software at the time. So, there's my cursor there. I'm going to attempt to move it. Hey, this mouse actually works. That is actually really nice. So, I guess it's not a huge loss if we don't have a PS2 converter. I can just use this mouse. And I just right-click there. Makes a nice little sound every time you right-click. I bet if that happened today, it would probably drive people crazy. But, I mean, I'm sure it could be turned off. Probably can't hear that well. It's coming out of my speakers, which are right back there. Yeah, the left click works. So this is actually nice. I can use this computer more functionally today than I could back then towards the end because I have a left click on this mouse now. So here's the start menu. Pretty standard. And probably more useful than the start menu in the latest version of Windows by default, if you know what I'm talking about. The Windows 10 start menu is just terrible. So you can use Classic Shell, but it's not the same as having, you know, the actual real start menu. One that actually works. And wow, it even remembers what I ran the last time I was on this computer. iExplore.exe. Another thing I should say, this computer has never been connected to the internet because obviously it has no network interface card, it's got no NIC. So you can only connect to the internet using dial-up internet, and this was never connected to a phone line, so this was just used all by itself. There's a help program here. Even though it's been 5 or 6 years, I still know my way around this computer rather well, so I don't really need the help. Open up my computer here. So there is the floppy drive, that is the A drive. Usually A and B drives were reserved for floppy disks. And then disk drive C, pretty standard. CD drive is the D drive. There's a folder for dial-up networking here. That's interesting. I think it just opens up a portal for that. Tells you how to actually make the connection. So, very helpful. Oh, that was cool. Made a funny noise. The one when you minimize is a little louder than the one when you maximize. Let me go ahead and move the speakers closer so you can actually hear. If I just move this computer back a little bit. And I'll put this one here. And I'll just move this out of the way for now. And I could, well, that's the best I can do right now. I would move it around here, but I've already got something funny with the cord going on here. I wonder what's in my documents. A folder called private. Probably best not to go in that on camera. I mean, yeah, this computer was used for a long time, so... Actually, here's something interesting. If you look at the date modified column, you know, this computer is running Windows 98, but this was a primary computer, at least for us kids, for quite a few years. So, this was really my sister's computer, so these are all her files, really. But if you look at the dates modified, looks like we were using this computer right from around 97. Well, that might be a system file. I'm not sure what that is. Oh, I think that's just... I think actually that's a document I created. There's no way I wasn't around in 97, so that couldn't have been me. That's probably just a system default or something. And that's that. Windows Update. Wouldn't do me any good to click on that because there is no internet connection with this computer. So I think these are all recent documents here. I was really the last one primarily using this computer, so yeah, I can say probably a lot of these are my documents that I used. It's been a while, obviously. And here are all the programs. Like I said, there's a ton of stuff on here. I mean, and these menus just go on and on like that. I remember this game. I played this for a while. I was never really a gamer, and I'm not a gamer now, but when I was pretty young, I played some games on this computer. I remember that well, and that was really all the gaming I ever got into. This is probably how I learned to type. I really learned to type by writing stories on the computer, but this kind of introduced me a little bit to it. It's a helpful typing software. I remember this program too, the Disney software. Jumpstart typing. I had Netscape Navigator. I'm not sure why there are even other web browsers on here, because I'm pretty sure this was never brought online. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right, so. And we'll have to scroll here. Firefox. You know, I could be wrong. Maybe there's Firefox on here. This was definitely online at some point. So, maybe we were using dial-up. When I was using the computer, it was never online, so perhaps it was at some point. Yeah, and you have AT&T WorldNet service, AOL CompuServe, so possibly these just came installed with the computer, I'm not sure. And that's it for software. So I think if I go back up, here's PowerPoint. It looks like all the Microsoft Office programs are just dumped into the main folder. So I wanted to open Word here, but here's Excel. There's Outlook, Access, PowerPoint. Everything except Word. Well, there's a shortcut to Word on the desktop, so here is that shortcut. So this has Word 2000. So yeah, this was Word back in the days before the ribbon, if you can remember that. Oh, I remember it had this cute little helpful dog. I think sadly they took that out of Windows at some point, but there is that dog if you ever needed him. And it opens up a helpful window. See, Windows today, if you just need help, it'll just open up an online window to something and, just take you to their online help. It's basically useless, These were the days when help with your computer was actually helpful. And cute. You have a cute little dog there. Oh, look at that cute little dog. Oh, that's cute. It even makes noises. I'm typing with one hand here. Keep that in mind. Oops. That's not what I wanted to say. There we go. Oh, I just liked watching that. I would just open up Word and exit it just so I could see that dog leaving like that. And I don't think this was the standard background with Windows 98. This is probably something my sister put on here. But I'm not going to change anything. This brings back some good memories, so. I think this is a tic-tac-toe game. Yeah, it is a game. I haven't done tic-tac-toe in a while, so I'll go easy at first. Who said he could go first? Yeah, I think tic-tac-toe is a game where if you both play strategically, every game ends in a tie. And this is the easy level. I don't pretend to be a tic-tac-toe strategist, so I could probably be doing something better here. I like how the computer is called I am, I think. Yeah, I give up now. Oh, and here's the program that my mother wrote. So, of course, this is pretty basic stuff, but I can just use the number pad here. I'll get one wrong on purpose just to see what happens. I'll get another one wrong. Counter goes up anyways. Maybe it gives you stats at the end. Giving up. Oh, I see. It gave you 100 problems. Yeah, I didn't do all of them. So, pretty helpful. I think, I'm not sure if that's how I learned my times tables, but it definitely helped me learn my times tables. So, I think that's all I have time for at the moment. I'm going to do a ton of playing around with this later, but I'm just excited that I got this up and running. That's pretty cool. So, I think I heard if you press Control-Alt-Delete on older versions of Windows, it restarts the computer. Not sure if that's actually true, but let me try that here and see what it does. And that just brings up a closed program dialog. Pressing Control-Delete again will restart your computer. And what I actually want to do is shut down, so I could shut down that way, but let me press Alt F4 and see if that works. Oh, that also brings it up. Restart in MS-DOS mode, that's interesting. I'll have to try that sometime. But I'll just shut down the normal way for the moment. And until next time. Now this is another interesting thing. Today's computers, when they're, quote, powered off, they don't really make any noise. Now this computer here, this makes noise whenever it's plugged in. The computer itself is powered off at this point. Well, it's shut down, I should say. But it'll be like this 24/7, even when it's not in use, if you don't unplug it. So if I recall correctly, we would just kill the power to it whenever it was not being used. And the next time you started Windows, I would bring up, you know, it would get mad and say, oh, we need to do some sort of disk check now, you know, to properly check your computer and make sure everything's verified and all right. But so I guess I'll go ahead and push the switch in the back now to kill the power. You can see it's got this orange light here. So if I can find my way in the back, I believe that is the power switch right there. And now the computer is actually fully powered off. Till next time.